Access Challenge, findings from OUR's Impact Assessment Study. I am Elizabeth Bennett Marsh, Public Education Specialist at the Office of Utilities Regulation in Jamaica, which is staging today's webinar. In May of this year, the OUR informed the public that it had concluded its two-part impact assessment study on office closures by the Jamaica Public Service Company Limited, JPS, and based on its findings, had shared some recommendations with the JPS. In reacting to the findings, and Hewitt said, quote, "The study conveys the sentiments of most of JPS's customers impacted by the office closures, and certainly the views of those with whom we have interacted in the various communities and through OUR's Consumer Affairs Unit." He continued, "While the OUR is reluctant to prescribe specific modes for utilities to address their customer service obligations, it remains unequivocal in its position that the options offered must not impose undue inconvenience or hardships for customers to access or make use of them." Despite the fact that the office closures took place some 4 years ago, the issue is not going away. And so the OUR is staging this webinar to share that what are our findings and recommendations, and we have also invited JPS to be a panelist. And so joining me today are Colette Good, Specialist for Consumer Affairs with Oversight for Policy at the OUR, and Leroy Reed, Director of Customer Solutions at the JPS. We have invited them to each make presentations on this issue from the perspective of the regulator and the utility provider. We invite you to drop your questions or comments in the chat, whether you are on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, and we'll take them afterwards. And I'll invite Colette Good to make the first presentation. Colette.
Good morning. Thank you, Liz. Thank you to the viewers, and good morning as well to my co-panelist, Leroy. All right, so let me just get my presentation up and running. Okay, let me share. And let me put it in presentation mode. Okay. So, as was mentioned by Liz, I'll be sharing briefly on the JPS Parish Office closure and the access challenge in terms of our research. So I'll be briefly giving a bit of background on the JPS Parish Office closures or research, including the methodologies that was used, the research findings or recommendations to JPS, as well as the next steps. Between February 2020 and February 2021, JPS closed 10 of its parish offices in the parishes that you can see on screen: Hanover, Trelawney, Portland, Kingston, and St. Andrews, specifically its East Parade, downtown Kingston office, the office in Portmore, St. Catherine, the office in Clarendon, St. Thomas, St. Mary, St. Elizabeth, and Westmoreland. So with these 10 office closures, only 5 JPS offices remains open, and these are located in Kingston on Ruthven Road, St. Catherine in Spanish Town, Manchester in Mandeville, St. James in Montego Bay, and St. Anne's Bay in St. Anne. With the offices remaining open, when we looked at it by county, we recognized that remaining open in Middlesex, which for us is a disproportionate distribution of remaining offices that are open. Why did JPS close these offices? They told us that they closed them for two main reasons. One was the low use of the offices by customers. When they did their checks, they realized that only about 5% of the customer base in those parishes were actually using the parish offices. And they also found that there was an increase in the use of their digital platforms, which includes the My JPS mobile app. So with the parish closures, the OUR, as part of its mandate to protect the interests of consumers, conducted research, as Liz mentioned. And this research was conducted in two phases. The first phase was an internal research where we administered an online survey to customers, specifically in the parishes where the JPS offices were closed. And we also requested JPS to provide us with reports on the closures, as well as the alternate measures that were put in place through which they were delivering customer service. Coming out of that research, that phase one research, it was decided that we needed to delve a little deeper into the parish office closures. And so we undertook, through a consultant, a scientific research. The objectives of the research were to assess or ascertain the impact of the parish closures on customers, if there were any impact. We also wanted to ascertain the level of satisfaction with the measures implemented by JPS to deliver customer service, the effectiveness of the measures or channels established by JPS to provide customer service, wanted to ascertain the ease or difficulty with using the customer service channels established by JPS, look at whether there are other options through which JPS can deliver customer service, as well as whether there are any distinctions in the experience of rural versus urban customers, and also whether there were any socioeconomic factors regarding the parish closures. The research methodology, we used both qualitative and quantitative. For the qualitative, we used two focus group discussions, and these groups were comprised of mixed gender JPS customers from the parishes of Clarendon, St. Catherine, and St. Mary. For the qualitative research, we surveyed 330 JPS customers, with 230 being in parishes where the offices were closed and 100 being in parishes with the offices that remained open. Now, what did our research find? It found out that irrespective of whether a JPS office remained in a parish, the JPS office remained the channel mostly used by customers. As you can see, in parishes with no JPS office, it was 86%, as well as and versus 87% in a parish where an office remained open. And the JPS office was followed by bill payment agencies, 75% in parishes with no JPS office, and 51% in parish with a JPS office. The main activities carried out by customers with JPS are bill payment, making a complaint, and querying a bill. Customers also rated their satisfaction with the channels provided by JPS. And what we found was that, except for the call center, customers rated their satisfaction with the channels within a range of 71% to 87%. With respect to effectiveness and ease of use of the alternate channels, of these channels, the JPS mobile app, the online platform, and even in office, the ratings, customer rated them similarly between 71% and 87%. Only the call center received ratings lower than 70%. The call center ratings were within the range of, say, 52% to about 62%. We also found that customers' preference for a channel related to the activity that was being done. So for instance, for paying bills, they preferred going to a bill payment agency, and this was the channel whether or not a JPS office remained open in their parish. However, for other activities such as new service application, making a complaint, querying a bill, reconnection of service, or requesting a service disconnection, customers preferred going to the JPS office whether or not one remained open in their parish. They say time is money, and as you would imagine, for customers who live in a parish where the JPS office is closed, they would incur longer travel time to get to a JPS office. And the research found that it took those customers at least 50 minutes. And this is against the 10 minutes that it takes customers who live in a parish where the office remains open. Additionally, the average cost for customers to visit a JPS office was $971, which is approximately $1,000. The respondents to the survey also advised of the ways that they would want. They gave us some suggestions as to how they would want JPS to improve their customer service delivered to them. And as you can see, overwhelmingly, 77% wanted JPS to reopen the offices. 9% wants JPS to make it easier for them to call the call center, and 7% wants JPS to place smaller offices in existing locations, such as supermarkets and post offices. So coming out of the research, we have made some recommendations to JPS, and these recommendations are for JPS to review the spatial distribution of its customer touch points. Having just one customer touch point in the counties of Cornwall and Surrey certainly is not sufficient. We also want JPS to develop customer solution that satisfies face-to-face customer touch point requests for those services that they prefer to do in offices. We also recommend that JPS explore how bill payment agencies can be leveraged as customer touch points, as well as to make the My JPS app zero rated, because we believe that that would reduce any increased cost to customers by making the My JPS mobile app zero rated. What are the next steps? We have shared the findings with JPS, and we have asked them to review the feedback from their customers and develop an action plan to address the customers' feedback as well as our recommendations. JPS is required to present its action plan to the OUR by no later than November 30 this year. Thank you for your time and your attention, and I will take questions at the end.
Thank you very much, Colette. That was Colette Good, our manager or specialist for consumer affairs policy at the Office of Utilities Regulation. And as Colette said, we are taking your questions or comments. Please drop them in the chat, whether you are on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram watching live. So, from the regulator's perspective, we now turn to the utility provider's perspective. And I now invite Leroy Reed, Director of Customer Solutions at JPS, to address this issue from the provider's point of view. Leroy?
Hey, Liz, thank you very much. Colette, thank you very much. Can you confirm, Liz, that you are seeing my screen? I'm sharing screen.
I am.
Brilliant. All right. So formally, good morning, Liz, and good morning, Colette, and good morning to viewers. So at JPS, we welcome this conversation. We deem it to be a very important conversation, obviously led by the OUR. And this engagement this morning reflects what I deem to be the collective responsibility that together we hold in ensuring that no customer is left behind, especially in times of disruption. We're also mindful of the interest of various stakeholders and wish to ensure all parties that JPS is not standing still. We've invested and we have improved since 2023. Now, the matter of trust is also important, right? So building and sustaining trust is foundational to all that we do. So in that regard, I want to assure everybody that we're using data to validate customer sentiments and we're using data to guide our actions. Now, public confidence is also important. So the other statement I'll make very quickly is that the customer support model that we have built is one that listens, is one that learns, and it is one that leads. So what has JPS done? We have listened to the advocacy, we've looked at the report, and we have moved from reflection to action. We have crafted an overarching customer experience strategic framework to reimagine customer support around their needs. And it is all aimed around reducing the need for customers to contact us, to ensuring that wherever possible, when customers contact us, we resolve their issues at first contact, and we keep an eye on building lasting relationships. Access clearly is a main point of concern in the study. So by now, I think most of Jamaica would be aware that we have began the process of reintroducing face-to-face touchpoints in parishes where offices were closed, and we are improving availability across all channels. So we rolled out the My JPS Care Hub at the Fontana Pharmacy in Portmore on July 7th of this year, and the pilot started on May 30th. Consistent with the strategic framework that I mentioned earlier, right? We are focused on customer interactions. Demonstrating empathy, we recognize is important, and as such, we have exposed our team, our front-facing team members to best-in-class customer training from leading industries in Jamaica and globally. And we're also focused on ensuring that our responsiveness from an agent interaction perspective is improved. When we address resolving customer issues, the paradigm shift that we have made as an organization is that we're not solely focused on fixing the core issue as it presents to us, but we're also focused on meeting the unstated needs of our customers. And this is happening because we have mapped the journeys of our customers. We understand their pain points at every touch point, and we have crafted strategic and tactical initiatives to address those pain points so that we can improve relationships. Now, Colette talked earlier about why the office is closed. So why did this happen? I'll just share some insights on that, right? We took the decision to close 10 offices during 2020 to 2021. And that decision was informed by what we saw in terms of declines in in-person usage in locations like Falmouth, locations like Port Antonio and Portmore. Office visits had dropped to well under 600 customers per month by 2019, which represents less than 5% of customers in those parishes. Now, this data, sorry about that, this data coupled with voice chat and IVR growth, that's the interactive voice response system, show that more customers were choosing digital, mobile, and third-party options. Now, we readily accept that COVID-19 simply accelerated that trend. So by 2023, approximately 97% of all JPS transactions were conducted by digital channels, including the app, the web portal, and our 24/7 contact center. So whereas we acknowledge that the closures, though data informed, had real impacts so we want to acknowledge that the closures, right, though data informed, we want to acknowledge that those closures had real impacts for specific groups, especially those in rural communities, those that were digitally disenfranchised, meaning they had low connectivity or had little or no access to mobile devices. So that is why we're now focused on ensuring that our evolution is not just modern, but that our evolution is inclusive. On the behalf of JPS, I want to assure the nation today that JPS remains committed to ensuring that no customer is left behind. JPS is working continuously to reimagine what we deem as inclusive access service models that reflect the needs of all Jamaicans, right? Now, let's talk a little bit about customer impact. We acknowledge that there was indeed an impact on the office closures, but that impact needs to be understood in a particular context, in the sense that there were differentiated experiences across demographics. So we mentioned that the elderly, the folks in rural communities and low-income customers, yes, they faced greater barriers to support. They had to travel longer distances, we agree, to get to an open office. And yes, we also agree that the cost of travel is an issue, and we accept that digital literacy is also an issue, right? The other side of the coin is that customers in urban centers, the truth is they adapted more quickly to digital channels, and the operational realities between 2019 and 2021 is that there was a 68% reduction in overall office visits, right? That's one point. There was over 1,000% growth in self-serve transactions, primarily through the My JPS app penetration. The chats to the contacts via chats increased by over 220%, and calls in terms of customers engaging with our interact. So there was, in fact, a notable and a commendable adoption of the mobile channels that became available to our customers. Despite this evidence, though, we acknowledge that there are still many customers that are digitally excluded. There are still many customers that face and continue to face challenges, right? Some of the things we did really quickly is that we expanded our support through our channels, the IVR voice and the app. We strengthened partnerships with bill payment agencies. We had proactive outreach activities to vulnerable customers through pop-ups and roadshows. And the data point here is that between 2021 and 2023, we had approximately 450 of these outreach types that I mentioned, right? The pop-ups, the roadshows, and the community visits. And our reach was approximately 50,000 customers during that period. We also embarked on education campaigns. We rolled out the mobile bus, but truthfully, that wasn't a sustainable initiative. So there remains an opportunity for us to find a solution to reach our constituents, our customers, where they are in the communities to serve them better. And that's something that we're committed to looking at. And so our face-to-face engagement during the period, it was a good initiative, but more improvement is required in that area. So yes, we welcome this research from the OUR, and we encourage the dialogue, and the dialogue should be one that reflects how we operate, not just during crisis conditions, but also through steady state conditions. Now, let me jump really quickly to payments, right? Because Colette mentioned earlier that bill payments was one of the highest transactions done by respondents in the study that was undertaken by the OUR. So this latest OUR research, right, demonstrated that over the past 12 months, 98% of survey respondents in parishes with JPS offices and 93% of respondents in parishes where there were no JPS offices said that the utilization of bill payment agencies was the second highest channel that they used. Within that context, I want for us to understand that only 6.9% of all payment transactions are done at JPS locations, whereas 80.5% of payment transactions are done at banks and payment agencies outside of JPS. Given the realities of this important channel to our customers, JPS took several tangible steps to reduce the efforts customers must make to interact with us, especially for the most frequent need, which is bill payment. So as an example, when we rolled out the My JPS Care Hub in Portmore, we were very careful to ensure that it was located in close proximity to bill payment agencies. Another thing we did was we expanded partnerships to bring payment touchpoints closer to underserved communities. Our big announcement this morning is that in January of this year, a new partnership with Supreme Ventures Limited was forged. And that partnership brings an additional 140 payment agency locations across all 14 parishes in Jamaica. JPS is proud to share that our new agreement with Supreme Ventures has significantly increased our payment touchpoints across the island, including parishes that are underserved, parishes like St. Thomas, Hanover, and Trelawney. So as we get through this presentation, I want to also talk through other things we're doing, right? So we continue to empower our customers digitally. Since the launch of the My JPS mobile app back in 2020, there has been a 25-fold increase in the number of customers who use the My JPS mobile app. If I recall correctly from this OUR study, the satisfaction rate by respondents was up in the 80s in terms of a percentage. Today, we have about 26% of transactions done by customers across all channels, done via the My JPS mobile app. And this viewers and my colleagues at the OUR is a testament to the increasing appetite that customers have for digital tools that offer speed, that offer convenience, and that offer control. Now, JPS is mindful that for this adoption to be meaningful, digital platforms must be accessible, they must be intuitive, and they must be supported by alternatives for those who are less digitally inclined. So whilst we celebrate, we're aware that there is a preference on the part of our customers for increased face-to-face interactions, increased face-to-face touch points. So that is why we launched the My JPS Care Hub as a model initially in Portmore, and more hubs are planned for the future. Now, as we think through and talk through a little bit more about how JPS is empowering customers digitally, not just the improvements are not just with respect to mobile app penetration, but what we're seeing is that in our offices or 5 brick and mortar spaces that remain, approximately 80% of all transactions that are done in our offices from 2024 to mid 2025 are done through digital self-serve stations and done also through courtesy phones, demonstrating that even in physical spaces, right, customers are choosing speed, they're choosing autonomy, and JPS's offices are being equipped accordingly. Again, despite this success, we wish to assure all stakeholders that JPS remains committed to human support. JPS recognizes that empathy and live assistance remains vital, especially for our vulnerable customers. Now, the matter of wait time is something that was raised in the OUR report. The report stated that customers were unhappy because the wait time ranged between 10 and 20 minutes. And that was a research that was done at a point in time by the OUR. The research was done in August. You recall that we had burial in July. So this research was in the post-burial period. And we posit respectfully that that result is not representative of our normal operations. In fact, we have reduced average wait time from over 5 minutes to under 10 seconds today, even as we improved resolution quality and channel coverage. And these improvements are driven by significant investments that we have made in technology and significant investments that we have made in people. JPS is listening to its customers. JPS is learning from its customers, and JPS is acting based on the feedback that customers give us. We have a very robust voice of the customer program that's in place, right? Where we get ongoing feedback through surveys, through digital tools, through field interactions. And we use these insights to prioritize real customer-led improvements. We do annual customer satisfaction surveys. We call them CSAT surveys. And the 2024 CSAT survey finding indicates that there's an overall satisfaction rate of 76% with JPS's services. This is what customers are saying. 76% of customers surveyed said they are satisfied with JPS's service. So we're getting positive ratings for our digital access. We're getting positive ratings for channel convenience. Customer feedback from the survey specifically requested more payment locations. I'm happy to report today that is done. It was implemented. Feedback from the survey also indicated customers' preference for increased in-person touch points in commercial hubs. The model has been designed, the model has been deployed, commencing at Portmore at the Fontana Pharmacy, and more hubs are to come. Customers have indicated that they have a preference and a need for faster issue resolution. Well, I think I shared with us just now that there has been an improvement in wait time across all channels, inclusive of the call center, which was a pain point in the OUR report. And as I wrap this up, the recommendations that are included in the report, Colette spoke to them just now, with respect to recommendation number 1, which is asking for a review of spatial distribution of customer touchpoints. Again, the My JPS Care Hub model is designed and deployed. We launched at Fontana in Portmore. We have a map of Jamaica where we overlaid where the existing offices were. We looked at where the current offices are located. We looked at the distance between closed offices and open offices. We looked at the customer density, the traveling distances, and have a plan as to what the locations should be for the continued deployment of My JPS Care Hubs. With respect to recommendation number 2, that asked for us to develop a solution that satisfies face-to-face touchpoint requests and serves the customer's needs. Well, the My JPS Care Hub will suffice because all services available in commercial offices are also available in the My JPS Care Hub. Recommendation number 3 asks that we leverage bill payment agencies as customer support locations. We hear you. It's a matter that's under review as we look at what the channel strategy for JPS should be in the short, medium, and long term. And finally, the last recommendation that is included in the report was a request that we consider zero rating the My JPS mobile app. That recommendation is also under review. I appreciate your patience in listening to my response. We tried to make it as structured, as detailed, as coherent as we possibly could. We value the opportunity to be present for all constituents today, and I look forward to receiving your questions. So back to you, Liz.
Thank you very much, Leroy. That's Leroy Reed, and he's Director of Customer Solutions at the Jamaica Public Service Company Limited. So JPS has outlined a raft of measures that it has taken and is taking to address the concerns flowing from its decisions between 2020 and 2021 to close most of its locations. It talked about how it's moving to address the raft of recommendations that the OUR had shared coming out of its impact assessment study that it did in 2 phases, getting the feedback from customers like yourself. Leroy, you talked quite a bit about addressing members of what I call the vulnerable community. We recognize that there are certain members who will never be comfortable with the digital space, even though it is the way to go and it's far more efficient, as many of us will agree, because we can now sit at our desks or at our home, we're lying down and we're paying our bills, we're making a query, etc. But there are significant persons who will never be comfortable, and you know this, it may be among the minority of your customers, but it was not totally clear to me, Leroy. What were the measures that are presently in place? So you talked about your trial with the mobile bus, etc. But what measures are currently in place for those categories of JPS customers?
It's a fair question and a reasonable one. So improving access for the most vulnerable of our customers is important. We deployed the My JPS Care Hub as a pilot to test its fit with the needs of our constituents in parishes that do not today have an office that is open. That model is proven to be hugely successful. So in that regard, we do have a roadmap in place for the deployment of additional My JPS hubs in parishes where we have no offices. In the past, what we have done is the community engagement activities. Those continue. Those have not been discontinued. So today we partner with community organizations. We partner with the Social Development Commission, other agencies where we go into communities and we meet with them to hear their needs and solve their issues at first point of contact. That's an initiative that needs to be accelerated. So in that regard, Liz, we're having conversations internally whereby we have assessed what the resource requirements are, what the structure changes should be to put us in a position to very quickly accelerate the deployment of that initiative to get access closer to our customers. So it's under consideration presently.
So Leroy, just to be clear, I want to make a distinction. Well, it's in my mind, but I wanted you to create the
Sure.
distinction. You have established a hub in Portmore, and you have
Yes.
indicated that there are plans to establish similar ones in other parishes without an office. So
Correct.
create a distinction for me between having a JPS office in those
Mhm.
parishes and creating a hub. What's the difference?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Elizabeth. So there is fundamentally no difference. The only difference is when I say no difference, the scope of services that are offered in an open JPS office today, the said scope of services remain available in the hub at Portmore. And that will be the scope for every new hub that we open. The fundamental difference is that it's not a brick and mortar location that JPS owns and operates, but it's JPS operating within a high density retail location owned by somebody else for which we have a sublease arrangement.
Yeah. Colette, I'm going to turn, thanks for that, Leroy. I'm going to turn to you because we have seen this question before. And, since JPS has started the phased closure of some of his offices, we got it. Why can't the OUR as a regulator demand that they reopen the offices? You're the regulator. You're supposed to tell them what to do.
Thanks for that question,
Can we
Liz.
do
And
that?
yes, we have received that question, especially those of us who interface daily directly with the customers.
Yes.
Unfortunately, no, we cannot do that because that essentially is an operational decision, and utility regulators generally avoid getting directly involved in those day-to-day decisions of the regulated entities. And that is because we want to maintain clear separation of duties and promote efficiency. So what we'll do while we set standards and ensure compliance, and we will even, as part of ensuring compliance and monitoring, we monitor. So we'll ask for reports and so on so that we can see what is happening, how their decisions are affecting and impacting customers. We do not micromanage the operational decisions of the utilities that we oversee. So essentially, our role should be one of oversight and accountability, ensuring that utilities operate in the best interests of consumers and the public, and not to micromanage the day-to-day operations of the utilities, so that we can encourage them to be productive and to encourage overall efficiency and effectiveness of the utility sectors.
Thank you for that, Colette. And Leroy, my last question for you as we prepare to wrap up. You started at the beginning of your presentation by talking about trust and how trust is important for JPS to establish with its customers. Do you think that JPS's decision to close your offices has eroded any trust between you and your customers?
That's a very good question, Liz, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much for posing same. I think in my presentation, I did indicate that our digitalization strategy has been immensely successful. But despite that success, I did indicate we acknowledge that it created challenges and underserved segments of our customer base. They were underserved. So I accept that a trust deficit would have occurred. And we're mindful that it is a gap that we need to close. So we are committed to finding the right solutions, the right fit within the context of the business operations to serve those needs and close that trust deficit gap.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Leroy. So the takeaway, ladies and gentlemen, is that the OUR has issued some recommendations to the JPS in light of the findings coming out of its impact assessment study on JPS office closures. And one of the recommendations is review your spatial distribution of customer touchpoints. How many spaces do you have for customers to eyeball you and your agents and have their issues addressed? And in answer to that, the JPS has said, okay, we have established a hub in Portmore and we're planning a further rollout in St. Thomas and St. Elizabeth. Those are under review. We have said develop a customer solution that satisfies face-to-face requests, and these are the services that customers must access in your customer service agencies, such as new service application, reporting a complaint, querying a bill. And in response, JPS says all services are available in commercial offices, are also available at its initial JPS Care Hub, which is in Portmore, and in subsequent hubs that will be established. Leverage your bill payment agencies. We're saying, let customers have more options for where they can pay their bills. You have the digital platform, that's great. What are the other face-to-face options? And you have just announced today that 140 more options are now being made available through an agreement with Supreme Ventures, and we're very happy to hear that. And we have also said to you, make the MyJPS mobile app 0 rated, which means that you shouldn't have to have data credit on your phone to be able to access the MyJPS app. And you have said that that is currently under review. We want to thank you very much for being here. Leroy Reed, Director of Customer Solutions and Customer Service at the JPS. Thank you for being here. Colette Good, Consumer Affairs Specialist with Oversight for Policy at the OUR. Thank you for being here. And to you, our listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. And I want to say a special thanks to my production crew, headed by Gordon Brown, Jody and Lawrence, and Courtney Lewis. I am Elizabeth Bennett Marsh, the Public Education Specialist at the OUR. Until next we meet again, take care.